Hey guys, Mr. Ree here, and today it's time for me to give you a take on Borderlands 4 as far as, I guess, just a general review. Whether or not I think it's worth the money, I'm reviewing it now because I have reached a total of 69 hours of playtime, and therefore, that's about $1 for every minute, or every hour that I've played the game. So I think it's a pretty good place to kind of park my car and pull over to the side and give a review. I think I've experienced enough of the game to understand where it's going from here, and my sentiments are generally pretty positive. In this video, I'm going to be discussing a bunch of different factors that will probably affect your decision on whether or not this game is good for you, or whether it's going to be a worthy successor to Borderlands 2, which is the golden era that everyone harkens back to. What I will say off the top is that I'm not going to be discussing two things specifically in order to just not have those influence your buying decisions. The first one I won't be discussing is anything plot spoiler related. I'll give you my overview thoughts on the plot as it generally is, but or the story, the story mode, their campaign as it generally is, but that's it. So there won't be any spoilers in here, don't worry. And I'll also be excluding any discussion past what I'm about to discuss about Randy Pitchford and his antics, because he, if you are not currently aware, is having an epic crash out on Twitter and just absolutely going bonkers over people saying that this game is unoptimized and buggy and is crashing, and he's trying to just dismiss every bit of criticism. This is a completely self-inflicted wound. I have no idea who is letting this guy have access to his phone. One would think that there would be a board of directors who would say, okay, Randy, you have to stop now, because he is absolutely just causing a shitstorm where there barely was one. He's doing the Streisand effect, where his complete blow up is drawing a lot more attention to the fact that this is an issue than it would otherwise. So I can't, in all good faith, put his bullshit into the review, because if you leave him aside, I don't think he really has anything to do with the development of this game. I don't think he's a developer. I don't think he knows how to code it. I don't think he has any balancing or design decisions that are going into it. He might be the guy who wrote some of Claptrap's jokes, right? That would fit his humor style, but that's about it, right? So as far as Randy Pitchford and his magic tricks, I think we can just pretend that he has made himself disappear for the sake of this argument. But I'll go on record and say that yeah, he's being an absolute jackass, and there are 100,000,000% are performance issues with this game, and it is this game. It is not people's hardware. It is the game itself. So that brings me to the first point of discussion in whether or not this is a good game, whether or not it's a good investment right now or whenever, and that is meta stuff like performance. This game has some issues as far as stability and performance. Personally, I can't vouch hugely to the performance quality overall, because I have a 5090 and a 7800 X3D CPU, so I'm fucking jacked, and I run on maximum settings. So my issues haven't been frame rate related. My issues haven't been performance related, but I've had a ton of crashing, and for a very long time I thought this was me. Maybe I was overstatting for what my computer could do some freaking how, because I was noticing on my resource monitor that my CPU is hitting 100% during loading times, and when the game is reticulating splines and painting shaders or whatever it does during its loading times, and it was maxing out, and then I would start to move and the game would just crash the desktop, and it would do that over and over and over again. There was one day 3 days ago where I couldn't play for more than 5 minutes without crashing, and it was just interminable. And then yesterday I played with I think I played about 4 hours, and I had one crash, and that was only because I was tabbing in and out during a loading screen, and that's just inviting trouble in most games, right? So maybe that's something that obviously, hopefully that is something that they're working on and fixing. It is 100% an issue with the game, because there's no possible way that a game like this, when you're just kind of standing around, should be maxing out a top-end CPU and GPU. It's just consuming way too many resources, and there's some sort of leak or something going on here. But I have to trust that the engineers at Gearbox know that there are issues floating around, especially for those high-end cards, and are targeting them. So that aside, if you are wanting to wait until that's been leveled out more, that's perfectly your prerogative. if you want to roll them bones, I've talked to a lot of people who have worse cards than me, which is, I mean, everybody's got something lower than a 5090, but like, I've talked to people who have 4070s and they're able to run the game just fine. What I'll say, and they're not crashing as well, which is I'm very jealous of, but what I'll say is that without frame gen, you aren't really ever going to get over 60 FPS. Frame gen really, really helps this game. It makes it a lot smoother, but it is a quality frame gen. I don't notice any flickering or ill effects like I do when I run frame gen in games like Darktide, and Darktide runs worse, and it has, some days in Darktide you have as many crashes as this game does. But that's all the performance stuff out of the way. Let's start to talk about the value for your money in gameplay, in terms of like how much enjoyment you'll get out of this game. I definitely think that if you are a person who likes what you see on the screen, if you enjoyed Borderlands 2, if you maybe enjoyed Borderlands 3 but with the sound muted, right, this game will definitely pop for you because it's got that looter shooter element. It definitely has incorporated a lot of quality of life features, which I'll talk about in a second. I might actually talk about in a whole separate video in more depth, but they have really nailed down on some of those quality of life features that make the moment-to-moment gameplay that much better. They have an open world, which is amazing. It's a great fit for Borderlands. I can't believe, I mean, I guess the technology wasn't there, but the open world is a really, really great fit for this series, and it works great. And I have had no issues. Like, there's not like intermittent loading zones or anything like that. Navigation is honestly pretty smooth. The movement and the control of your character feels good. Every character feels like they have something powerful to contribute, and the builds all feel pretty creative and inspired. Yeah, there could be some balancing issues that need to go on pretty early on here, but there's lots to do, and it took me about 40 hours to fully level and complete the campaign on my first character, which is, if we extrapolate that out, maybe I'd be faster on my next playthroughs, but we're still looking at about 150 hours to level all 4 characters to max and reach endgame, and that's without even like farming or getting anything, gear-wise in the endgame. So you've got a good value proposition there if you are a player who's interested in leveling every character. If you're not, there's still stuff to do with one character to an extent, and this is where I'll say that the weakness of the game is right now in terms of content is the lack of endgame content. Now, this is an issue that Borderlands 3 launched with, and they slept on it forever, but I think they are acutely aware of that as their first, I think it's like the first 2 or maybe even 3 different points that they're going towards in their roadmap they've already announced include endgame raid content, like endgame bosses, like serious endgame bosses. The problem right now is that builds are very, very powerful, perhaps even overpowerful, and they just stomp all current content. There's nothing that can really stand a challenge. There's no, there's no Crawlmarax or, any of the other crazy raid bosses like there were in 2. But remember, that stuff didn't launch with 2, most of it anyway, and was instead stuff that was added over time as the power creep took you further and further. But I think that's what people want to harken back to, and it remains to be seen if they'll hit that level of quality. But Borderlands 3 honestly did eventually get to that level where there was lots of endgame raid content. The problem with that game was the power creep got crazy out of control and they never reined it back in. So it remains to be seen in terms of balance if they're going to neuter some of these builds that can insta-nuke bosses. There's a lot of bugged interactions going on right now. You've probably seen some of them posted online if you've been paying attention to Borderlands content at all. But yeah, they got to rein that back in before they publish any of these raids, or it's just going to invalidate it. But yeah, there's lots of content just as it is. Get all your characters leveled up, farm up gear for different builds, and I think it's a fun core gameplay experience. Now, speaking of fun core gameplay experience, we have to talk about the campaign or the story mode, playing through it, the base experience that most players are going to have. If you just play through the story, if you're here for the story, or you're here for the game and you don't want the story to annoy the absolute crap out of you like Borderlands 3 did with a lot of players, I think this is a good move in the right direction. I don't want to spoil anything. Like I said at the beginning, I'm not going to spoil anything, but what I'll say, and they set this tone right from the beginning, the main story in this game takes itself very seriously, which is a good thing, right? This game is this world is very brutal, and it's full of you murdering like hundreds of people every single day. It's full of psychopaths, and everyone is out for themselves, more or less. It's a Borderlands game. So the main characters and the main plot actors in the main storyline are not acting like silly billies, XD, I'm so quirky sort of types. So that is really good that they remove that from the mainline story. You'll still run into side missions where there's some wild character. Those have been kind of hit or miss for me. Claptrap, same thing with him. He has been sort of hit or miss. There have been some times where he's legitimately made me laugh, which is a good return to form. But there's also been some times where I'm like, okay, that's a good enough Claptrap. But fortunately, there is actually a volume slider for Claptrap himself, which I just discovered yesterday. So if you're just tired of hearing him, which he really doesn't show up that much, but he only shows up in side quests, except for like I think maybe one exception. That's a good sign for you. But I can't think what else to say here. I think that as far as the experience that you are expecting, a lot of players are very averse to this game because they don't want it to be another Borderlands 3 where the game is like eye-rolling the entire way through and it's hard to take seriously and be engaged with the game when you are just loathe every character you're surrounded by. I didn't have that experience at all, and I really hated the Calypso twins in 3, although it didn't turn me off of the game. I think that the Vault Hunters have some really cool abilities, and there's lots to explore there, and I am legitimately excited. I started with Vex, I leveled Vex. I'm gonna start playing Amon today, I think. There's some really cool stuff you can do with these characters, and they seem to have really inspired abilities. They're not all created equally, but there's lots to play with there, and I'm certain that more stuff will come over time. And there is already a roadmap out for this game that has them announcing that there is going to be a new Vault Hunter in 3 months or something. So there is not going to be a shortage of content for this game, and they're working on the Endgame stuff. Hopefully they're working on performance. If I were to say whether or not I recommend it, ultimately I can't give you that decision, right? It's your money to spend. $70 to some people is not an inconsequential amount of money, right? That might be the decision between do I get groceries for the week or not? If you're in that bucket, it's a fucking video game, right, man? It's up to you to decide whether or not it's going to improve your living conditions enough to play it. However, if money is disposable to you and you're just deciding, should I invest my time playing this game? If you like Borderlands, this is a really good return to form for Borderlands. No pun intended. I think it's definitely got the bones to be something really great. There are a ton of quality of life things in here that are going to make that farming and the sort of the what the game ultimately becomes, such as being able to go back and fight bosses over and over and over and grind out those perfect items, and the open world and the ability to play with people seamlessly. They can just jump into your world, they can teleport straight to you, they can start playing with you, then they can leave, or if they leave and their host, it'll drop you right back to where you were on the map after it loads. It's pretty seamless, it's pretty inspired, and I really like the implementation of that. It's way better than it was in 2 and 3 and even 1, where you're going between these tiny little loading zones and you have to hit the button and you gotta wait for 5 seconds, and if someone else cancels it, you're fucked and they're just trolling you. That was interminable. So I am very optimistic of this game. If it sounds like something you might be interested in, I bet you would be. I know $70 seems like a lot, but there is a lot of content here, and so if it is all a consideration for you, if you have the money to spend, I think it'd be a good one. And look forward to seeing more build content and just discussion content about it on the channel, because I'm excited about it right now. I know Mr. Tanner Lindbergh, a friend of the channel, is excited about it as well, which is a rare find for him. So yeah, there's the review, guys. I hope you enjoyed. Mr. Ease out of here. Bye bye.